Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Guilty Parade. Doris sighed sadly for a moment, her eyes burning bright with ever-glowing excellence once again. It was hard for me to understand her. Sorry for interrupting your creative process, but I need Helga's cigarettes. I promised I'd bring them to her. No, don't you dare bring her those. She will just smoke every last one of them. You can't actually find so many other ways to be useful. Really? I never heard of any other ways. It's all because of your amnesia. Come on, I'll show you. She dragged me to the kitchen table and mounted leftovers, putting it among them. There are shreds of raw meat, uncooked vegetables, and jelly, unknown origin, atop this spindled cider decorated with raw eggs. I know it doesn't look pretty, but it's so much meaning to it. I bet if you ever took an extraordinary cake, Almond, I'll take you in a great secret. At the bottom of the cake lies a single green pea. Usually, it will decorate cakes with berries and fruits on top. However, vegetables any worse. And note, I put a pea at the very bottom. What do you think? Have you ever seen anything like it? Just like one fairy tale. Doris froze and her hand started trembling. It's not original. She said it quietly and flatly. She seemed frightened, but was so scary about my remark. Instead of explaining, Doris thrust her hands inside the meal she cooked and started digging into the bottom. What happened? What are you doing? She wouldn't answer. Staring glassy eyes right at her creation, Doris continued the strange manipulations. In a few seconds or more, even minutes, stopped and finally pulled her hands out. Found it. She looked happy once again, studying the smashed pea in her dirty fingers. Wow. I'm so thankful to you, Omen. If you're not for my cake, you'd be mediocre. What would you think about it now? I don't know the answer to the question. It hardly changed after she dug into that cake. It just seemed a bit more lopsided to the right. It was about to fall. The most important thing, we'd leave before that happened. It's very original, really. I'll never see anything like it. Really? Honest? Of course. And what's the most original thing about it? I think, the vegetables. I would never have thought of adding vegetables to a cake. Well, even if an eccentric guy like you would never have thought about that, then I really did a great job here. It was really hard for me to stop Doris. Seems like it started coming up with something, and I still couldn't understand what was happening to the cigarettes. Helga's cigarettes. You know, actually, I wanted to stick smoldering, smoking cigarettes at the edges and be quite a sight. That's for sure. So, do you have them? No, I dropped them in the male dormitory. Seemed like Doris finally had noticed her meal was gradually leaning and falling down on the table. She shook her head again with her bare hands, starting to move it in the opposite side so it wouldn't fall. It bid her farewell and left the kitchen so carefully that Doris had turned her head to look at me, and she wouldn't even think that I was trying to escape from her. The ill-fated pack of cigarettes should be somewhere around here. Before I started looking, I noticed on the ground tier bed, closest to me, there was a note. Bed cover and the captain in black letters, Nemo's bed. Had they already provided me with a place to stay? I started my search for the lost bag of cigarettes. First I looked on the floor, looked under the bed's desk and beside the cabinets. Nothing. I didn't dare to look inside the cabinets or check under the sheets of the bed or other people, so I just cast my eyes over the room. Perhaps I would notice something. I sat on my bed, lolling my head to start thinking. What should I do about the pack of cigarettes now? Should I confess that I couldn't find it? I doubt Helga would be angry with me. Well, 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 Mr. Nimoy. Finally got his epilogue activities. Sudden sound of a human's voice made me abruptly raise my head and stand up. I was watching you this whole time. So what? Your spying days are over. You were exposed. What were you doing with my bed? Nothing. I was looking for Helga's pack of cigarettes. Soldier's eyelids narrowed as he approached the bed, which was above mine. He put his face mask on away in the black cabinet extremely carefully and ran his hand in a glove over the bed sheet. He was examining the bed thoroughly for a long time. I was standing behind him, and I could feel his concentration with my very skin while he was glancing at me every now and then. Soon I got fed up with that. Why in the world was this so distrustful? Look, I didn't do anything like that. There's no reason for me to harm you. I don't want to antagonize you guys. The soldier stopped his search and made up his bed and slowly turned to me. A good spy always gets along with those he plans to betray. He was right about some things. His stubbornness and persistence started to irritate me. I felt guilty. I really don't plan to do that. I just want to find the cigarettes to be able to get the bed linen. Let's say I believe you, but why were you sneaking around my bed? Seems like my bed is right beneath yours. I pointed the note lying in the blanket. My partner in conversation took it by his hands to read it carefully, examining it from all sides, taking his mask off and sniffed it. Tisk, Oliver. It was a mystery to me how exactly he worked it out, and the author of the note. In his handwriting, smell, or above it, it's really written by Oliver. A soldier who finds everything suspicious could make a pretty good detective. Just don't think I believed everything you said, Mr. Nemo. You're too suspicious, especially your actions. Fine, just stop calling me Mr. Nemo. Just Nemo would be better. And what's your name? The soldier kept quiet, eyeing me carefully. My name is Yakov. I would find that someone either way. Yakov, have you seen the pack of cigarettes by any chance? Helga asked me to bring them to her. I saw only the wrapping, and found it under your bed, although back then it was still mine. I don't think this thing inside were cigarettes. Most likely someone wanted me to think they were cigarettes. That person made a mistake. They thought I wanted to check the contents and open up the pack, but I don't act on such principal ways. It either contains highly volatile poison or a bomb, which would trigger once you open the lid. Fools, I'm surrounded by fools. And what did you do? Do you know what I know? Really, I sneaked into Alice's pocket. When changing her, soon I learned what was inside. I couldn't really understand whether Yakov was joking or talking serious. But he's your comrade. You're fighting alongside each other. How could you risk his life? Oh, come on. He's all strategist. We're not fighting side by side. He was blind, so he's the only one who wouldn't notice my manipulations. And he has nothing to lose. He can't see anyway. I could feel anger welling inside him. With this kind of attitude, there's no wonder you don't trust people because yourself act like a real traitor. I ran out of the room without waiting for Yakov to respond. What would I not give to forget the surprised look on his face after I went out of control and rant? Maybe I stepped over a line? Maybe he wasn't serious? At that moment I knew only one thing. I needed to find Elisa and make sure he was fine. So that's the hint system. Not going in there again. I opened the door quietly and entered the room. The soldier was sitting among the boxes. He was surrounded by paint pots, his right hand holding a smudgy brush and canvas at the knees. When I approached him, he lifted his head and looked right at me in front of him. I couldn't see his eyes behind the long locks of hair. The soldier lowered his head as if he was listening to me every move closely. "Who's there? Hans?" I could tell right away he was blind. That meant he's Eli's. "I'm Nemo. I was interrogated today. Perhaps you heard about that? Your commander said I will have to live with you for some time. He is trying to investigate." "Good afternoon, Nemo. Yakov told me about you not so long ago. I'm Elias." "Very glad to meet you two." Elias didn't say another word. He dipped his brush into the paint and started moving around the canvas. His face seemed emotionless. It looked like he was watching for the corner of his eye, which showed some underneath his hair. How could he paint if he couldn't see anything? I walked closer to Elias and could felt it becoming tense. He was watching me, not with his eyes, but with his skin, at least. That's what I felt like. "May I have a look at your painting?" "No!" Elias tilted the painting towards himself to block the view. He was outright frightened. "If you don't want to show it, I won't look." "My painting is not finished yet. I don't want anyone to see it like that." "What are you painting?" "What I see." "That sounds interesting." Elias smiled, and all of a sudden he was heartwarming, a shy smile as if the simple words make him very happy. "Thank you, Nemo. I can't finish this painting for a long time. Something is constantly changing. I cannot get a hold of it at the moment to capture it on the canvas." Seems like he was really serious about this art. I didn't really understand what this meant about Elias. Torment provided that I guess I was right. Living in a constant darkness, you would be able to feel the colors of the world. That I could not see. "Sorry for such a question, but how could you tell your paint you're using?" "Isn't it evident that I'm blind?" Not at all. If Yakov hadn't told..." Elias smiled gently. "I was joking. Different paints have relief markings of different shapes, so I can differ colors by the sense and touch. I need to mix them just to rely on my intention. I learned that when I was still able to see." "And how did you..." Please don't ask me about that." Elias' lips started to trembling and he felt like they were going to do something despicable. "Sorry, listen. I should just have a pack of cigarettes in your pocket. Helga needs them right now." "I did have something like that. Perhaps Yakov slipped it in when I was changing my clothes." "So you know about it? Is it something Yakov always does?" "More often than not, he doesn't trust anyone and looks for a catch in everything. However, sometimes his suspicions can be very useful. I guess somewhere deep inside he can be distinguished of his fantasies from reality. Do you need a pack of cigarettes?" "Yes, Helga needs them." Oliver took it. He said that if I shouldn't dabble in such things at this time, I didn't know what he was talking about. "Cigarettes. Thank you for your help. I'll go look for Oliver." Elias nodded and just froze. Perhaps he was waiting for me to leave the room, so he could continue expressing the world of the canvas. pack of cigarettes is just as impossible to get hands on in such a short period of time. I managed to travel from hands to almost every soldier in the barracks. Without delay, I went to the hall. I wonder where he can be. Yokov was sitting in the room. He was carefully examining his bed. I've told you there's nothing there. He turned around. It seems you're angry with me, aren't you? Have you not found the pack of cigarettes with Ellis's? Is Elisa alive? His words were full of irony and drove me mad. Would you be disappointed? No, but I'd make some conclusions. Why don't you appreciate your comrades? What is you so suspicious of? About me in particular? I don't even know a thing about me. Yakov approached me and smiled, but his smile was caused rather by spite rather than joy. Exactly, I don't know anything about you. Nobody knows anything about you. Don't you find it quite mysterious? Furthermore, your pretty face doesn't suit your expressive earnestness that much. And that's also to raise a few questions. I bruised my lips. Maybe he's right. I observed the situation from only my perspective. However, something about Yakov wouldn't leave me indifferent. It was about his behavior. He seemed deeper, his nature. I want to learn more about myself, too. Then it's about time you start doing that. Perhaps your feeling will be able to find answers. Yakov turned his back on me and headed to the desk. Before I could move my foot from the threshold leading to the library, I was startled by Oliver's tough stomach. And here I was going to start looking for you. I see I managed to get you in your uniform. Well done. We will start the drill training soon. You just have to take part in it. And well, drill training? Of course. We're not at war after all. We have to be strong for that. We'll train a lot more, even then more. Oliver started smiling and stroked his stomach. Nobody would tell me the word about war, about the world. What happened? Rocking slightly from one foot to another, Oliver stared at me slightly. Actually, there's nothing to tell. We were living on a small continent, and almost like an island, and they say the rest of the lands were flooded after glaciers melted. Terrestrial poles sort of shifted, and at least that's what I've heard. The remaining human population was not that big, remaining in territories and not large enough to conflict broke out. Some wanted society to develop, others just wanted to live peacefully. It's impossible for those two ideals to coexist because they contradicted each other. Well, that doesn't matter. What ideas? Which side are you on? Oliver shifted his feet once again and furrowed his brow. We want to build a new future, to make our posters around you can see. But don't worry, we will win, really soon. The world will change for the better. What kind of development? Who are our enemies? Oliver's face looked sad as if he didn't want to answer that question. Don't worry, our general often arranges trips for our headquarters to maintain the fighting spirit, and we'll be able to find better answers to this question. The commander asked me to not distribute with you for this for now. Once you get used to everything, you will learn everything. Why, if I'm the only one you soldier? Why? If I'm one of you soldiers, then why wouldn't he be afraid to tell the truth? Because I agreed with this from the very beginning. And what if you're not one of our soldiers? Then I would still know. I wouldn't be fighting without knowing what I'm fighting for, right? For some time, a long silence fell between Oliver and his hands between his back, considering his carefree attitude and his feeling quite comfortable while he was torn to pieces by questions. Oliver visited Wanger's office, keeping his mouth shut because of the commander's orders. My amnesias and ignorance were Wanger's trump cards, and most likely he would know how to use them. I didn't want to be a puppet in his play, but I knew it was too risky to make decisions at the time like that. It was hard to predict how people I knew barely would behave. Keep your chin up, Nemo. Believe me, your questions are nothing compared to what the nearest future holds. Everything will be fine. Go to your dorm and make up your bed. And don't forget to wash your face and refresh yourself. And then we will gather together. I haven't received bedsheets yet. First I need to bring back cigarettes to Helga. Alice has told me you took it. Yes, I did. He shouldn't smoke. Smoking is bad for everyone, including Helga, but she doesn't listen to me. I gave cigarettes to Wolfgang, so he should pass them on to her if he hasn't forgotten yet. I sighed with relief, and now I could finally get back to Helga. Most likely she had already gotten them back. Well, then I'll go get in my bed and linen. Where should I go afterwards? I'll be waiting at our dormitory. We'll make sure you got your own bed and you can rest up a little while meeting the others. I didn't feel like I should tell him how I managed to meet everyone who lives in the barracks while hunting for cigarettes, so I just left the library. I turned around the corner and stopped. The entrance of the linen room was blocked by a soldier I saw during the interrogation. He was walking from side to side without paying any attention to me. Back then he seemed so focused and tense. It was time for him to walk in panic while clutching his notebook tight. He was wrinkling his forehead and narrowing his eyelids and mumbling. I'm Wolfgang. My name is Wolfgang. I'm Wolfgang. What then? The soldier noticed my presence. First he flinched and then he looked around and made 2 steps back while he was turning his gaze from his notebook and then from his notebook to me. Are you alright? Instead of answering, Wolfgang turned back to me and stuck his nose in his notebook. What the world is happening? Who are you? You were present during my interrogation this morning, weren't you? I'm Nemo. Do you remember me? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is all the time we have for this episode. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.